Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. Today we're tackling a big topic, capitalism versus socialism. Now these are two very different ideas, both claiming to offer the best way to run a society. It's a huge topic and people argue about it all the time, whether it's in classrooms, in the news, online. But I think it's important to have a fact-based conversation to understand what does capitalism and socialism really mean. And at the end of this, I think I'd like to ask you guys a question, you viewers. Would you prefer to live in a capitalist society, a socialist society, or a mix of both? So let's break it down a little bit and want to talk a little bit about too how the different generations see socialism versus capitalism or just socialism itself. But Jeff and I were talking about, we've been talking about cars a lot lately, and the other day we're like, hey, we got other things to talk about too. There's a lot of important things going on in the world.
Yeah, there's a lot of important things. Maybe some of them, maybe some of them are more important than cars. But, so this is probably one of them. I think there's a big difference between generations, and I think there's a big difference in definitions between generations of these subjects.
Yeah.
And I don't, obviously our generation, Gen X and baby boomers, view socialism as a 100% bad thing. And I think the younger generations don't necessarily view it that bad.
Well, you have to think about why the older generation think about it as a bad thing too. You think
Right.
about back when World War II was going on, or when, different countries, when
The Cold War in Russia.
the Cold War, Russia, Cuba,
Right.
those things were going on. And we were fighting as a country against things like communism and things like that. And I think people were tying socialism in with those ideas like Marxist and those type of ideas about socialism. But that's not all what socialism is. And I think we'll talk about that more. There's a lot more to that. And I guess defining what socialism is important. And so
Yes.
there are like Webster's version of what the definition is, but really it's how do people think about it? I think that's the most important.
I believe the dictionary definition of socialism honestly is irrelevant because you know whether what a generation believes socialism is what socialism is to them. It doesn't matter what the dictionary says it is, they believe it is to them. And I believe with the older generations, I think they're mixing a lot of socialism with communism mistakenly. I think there is some differences between the two. And I'm not advocating for either one, obviously, but I think I think the older generation maybe mixed the two up, and I think there's a lot of hypocrisy in it too. In the pro-capitalist, anti-socialist. Um,
Well, so let's kind of break it down a little bit in terms of when we talk about socialism, what is that? And we think about the goals of both systems. So I see capitalism, the goal of capitalism, it's built on freedom and opportunity, and it's about it says work hard, take risks, and you will be rewarded. And people get to make their own choices, what to buy, where to work, and how to invest their money. For socialism, I think it's a little bit different in terms of the goals and what socialism is. I see it as the goal. It's fairness. It's meeting people's basic needs, and it's not just about freedom. It's about making sure everyone has enough, and you shouldn't have to be rich to see a doctor or go to school.
and I think that is the view of the younger generation when it comes to socialism. Where I believe the older generation, mine and your generation, and the baby boomers, I would think the majority of them would define it as the government is forcibly taking money from me and giving it to people that didn't work for it.
Yeah.
I think that's the basic definition of a 50-year-old and older person.
Well, I mean, some of that is true to a degree.
It is true to a degree, but the problem I have with it, it's true, but the problem I have with it is the capitalist, the pro capitalist, anti socialist people. I feel like they're against socialism. They're against the socialism programs that they don't get to benefit from. But the ones that they do get to benefit from are still defined as socialism. They are just okay with it, or they don't even recognize it as socialism because they're benefiting from it. And my example would be, for one, would be public schools. If you think about how public schools is set up, someone like me that doesn't have kids and has never had them, I still pay into the school system. I still pay my taxes for your kids to go to school.
Yeah.
Well, if people like me didn't pay taxes to help out people like you wouldn't, a lot of people would not be able to afford to send their kids to school. That's the definition of socialism according to our generation, but yet our generation is okay with it because they benefit from it.
When you think about, well, take capitalism, you think about kind of the pros and cons of both. You know, that sounded like capitalism just ringing on your end there.
Yeah, it was.
So pros of capitalism, it encourages innovation and entrepreneurialism. You know, for example, you know, our country's only a couple hundred years old. Look at how fast we went from horse and buggy to where we are today as a nation. And that's because people had the freedom to go innovate and build companies. Now, did people get ultra rich and end up taking advantage of the little guy eventually? Yeah. But we did have that opportunity to go and build wealth. And, you know, everybody that came over to America started from that foundation, getting liberated from the king, you know, in England, and they came over here to start a new life or a new society. So capitalism, it gives freedom to choose how they earn and spend their money. And it does lead to, I think, economic growth. But the downside of it is it can lead to gaps between the rich and the poor. And that's what a lot of what's in the news today, the big divide between the billionaires and the people that can't afford to put food on their table for their family. The cons is that, you know, the essential needs like healthcare and education may be too expensive for some. So they're outclassed. They don't have the opportunity to go to a good university. And also, you know, a con of capitalism may be businesses tend to focus more on profit than their people. So I think, you know, there's pros and cons of both.
I agree. But the thing with capitalism is unfeathered capitalism, I think, is detrimental to a society because then the gap between rich and poor or rich and middle class grows wider and wider every year. If the government doesn't control it or in some way, then it will get out of control and end badly, just the same as full socialism will end badly.
Well, then that brings up a whole nother rabbit hole too. Can we trust our government to handle it the right way?
Can we trust society not let the government handle it though? I mean, which one's worse? Leaving it to just unfeathered capitalism and let society and the market determine it? Or is that better, or having the government regulate it better? Because I don't believe that corporations and the 1% will do the right thing with no consequences. So I believe there has to be some type of government control. Am I wrong?
Well, I think there should be some control mechanisms in. I guess that just begs a whole different question in terms of, you know, do we have people in the government that will do the right thing? There's so much corruption in government, you know, and we are voters. We vote these people in.
Right.
You know, so how do we actually hold government accountable if we're voting people in? Maybe people get voted in and they weren't corrupt, but by the time they get into the big political machine, they become corrupt really quickly, and it just becomes non-controllable because you've got huge industries and huge companies that buy these people out, or even downright threaten them if they don't, toe the line. So it's a tough one. But I think, we got to also take a look at, socialism. What is socialism?
Yeah, and what is socialism for us being 55? I think you're pushing 60. And what is socialism to a 25-year-old or a 30-year-old? I think it's two different things. I think our generation, again, I think it views it as a way for the government to take my money away that I worked hard for and to give it to somebody that didn't. And I think for the younger generation, it's a way for the government to level the playing field and not give so many advantages to the wealthy.
Yeah. So
Go
some
ahead.
things that our generation wants now, they don't want to have to pay for a college education anymore. It's like a lot of people view college as a scam. It costs them, over $100,000, and that's actually getting pretty cheap these days to get a 4-year degree. Where in other countries, like in European countries, they get university is paid for.
Right.
They get medical paid for. But here's the question. Who pays for that in the European countries?
Taxpayers.
And what's their tax rate compared to ours in the United States?
Yeah, but there's more. I think there's more to it than that, though. Your tax rate, I'm sure, is higher than ours. I assume it's higher than ours.
It's huge.
But the thing is so you take we'll just take one single person. We'll take an underprivileged 17-year-old, 18-year-old that just graduated high school. And his family has no means of helping him with college, him or her with college. So they don't go. A lot of times their parents are on government assistance and have been their entire life. Their grandparents was on government assistance their entire life. Well, without an education and without a chance, this person most likely is going to end up in the same place. So my question is, how much will it cost the American taxpayer to not pay for these people's college education? Because if they get a college education, they can break the cycle, and no longer are they a drain on society. Now with an education, they can contribute to society and break that cycle that goes on for generation after generation. So yes, taxpayers pay for $100,000 worth of college, and most likely they're going to end up with a least good enough job to support themselves and their family and not be on government assistance, versus not paying for their college and them not having an education, not being able to make a good living, being on government assistance, most likely the rest of their life. Their kids are the same way. They have no means of educating their kids further and helping their kids out. So which one is going to cost us more? I think
Well,
in the lifetime, not educating them is going to cost American taxpayers much more money than educating.
well, so let's just, for grins and giggles, let's look at what the difference is between what United States people pay in taxes, in personal income tax, versus what the European countries, which offers free university and free medical care, personal tax income tax for the United States is 37%, 55.9% in the EU. Then you look at the VAT, or value added tax. It's similar to what our sales tax is, and it's 7.5% average in the United States, 21.8% in European countries. And look at this as the big one.
So now that's equal to our sales tax.
Yeah. Then you take a look at Social Security tax. We pay on average a rate of 15.3% for Social Security tax. People in the EU pay 68%
For Social Security tax.
for Social Security tax. So when you think about the burden, I mean, when people would make a decision, which one would you rather have? Would you rather be burdened by this level of tax, or pay less tax and have less benefits? So I think it's
The
It's
question is what is the benefits? I mean, can you go to college for free? Or obviously you're paying it in taxes, but it's not more money out of your pocket to go to it. So can you go to college, get a better education, and improve your lifelong income by 50%, 60%? And on top of that, they have national health care. So you're not paying huge monthly premiums for health care.
well, but the difference there is so there's pros and cons of that too. You might get free health care, but you may not be able to get to see the doctor you want, or you may not get in time because the schedule of when you can go in and get treatment.
What's worse, here, not being able to afford to go to the doctor at all or waiting 2 months to see the doctor.
It depends on how urgent it is, I think. So
I
there's
mean, how
lot
many
of different.
people in this country don't go to the doctor because they can't afford it? And then again, if you look at that on the taxpayer, so when they put it off and put it off and put it off because they don't have any insurance, they don't go to the doctor, and then they have a heart attack and end up in the emergency room, and the taxpayers are paying for it anyway.
True.
So which one realistically is worse? I mean, if you're getting $100,000, or if you want to be a doctor, or I'm assuming attorney, and all those things are probably much more than $100,000 in college debt. You take that and insurance premiums for a lifetime. How much really difference is there then? I'm assuming there's still some difference, but I doubt it is quite as big when you start taking into account the benefits they get versus the benefits we get for that tax money that's taken from us.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of that's a perspective for sure. Just sharing a personal perspective. So when I was doing independent consulting and I had to go to the marketplace, the government marketplace to get my insurance, my health insurance, and I was paying about $1,300 a month for my insurance, and I couldn't get in to see doctors that I wanted to see. I had to go with whatever that plan was, and honestly, I wasn't happy with the choices I had. Then I went to work for a corporation, got benefits through them. Of course, I still have to pay a premium, but now it's Blue Cross Blue Shield. I can pretty much go see anybody I want to. So, I mean, there's, it's one
Right.
effort.
But I think everybody has a different experience because we have our insurance through the whatever it is, whatever.
Affordable Care Act.
Yeah, Affordable Care Act. We have ours through it, and I'm completely happy with it. Premiums are still pretty high, but as far as I'd never have to wait more than, I have to wait some. I mean, I probably have to wait 3 or 4 weeks, maybe 5 weeks sometimes to get in, but I don't have a problem with it. I've been very happy with what they've covered and what it cost me. So I think everybody has a different experience with the Obamacare or government. I guess it's not actually government insurance because ours is it was through Blue Cross, now it's through another company. But, they haven't denied us anything. I hear other people that have the same company that get some of the same stuff denied. And I think the difference is the government oversees the plan that I have versus they don't oversee the plan that, say, you have. So the insurance companies have a lot more discretion on what they want to cover and what they don't want to cover. And with our plan, they have less discretion about what they can deny us.
All right. So what about, like, when you think about socialism, this is one argument that people have too. Why should I, because I've worked hard my whole life to earn my money. And I grew up poor too. My dad instilled in me a work ethic to go out and bust my butt to make a living. I grew up on, my mom and dad got divorced. We lived on government food. We were on food stamps for a while. Not proud of it, but I had to work my way out of that. And I didn't want to be on government assistance. So for people that just choose, like if in socialism, can people just be lazy and not be motivated to go out and try to make a living and just rely on the community to pay their way, should that be allowed as well? I mean, where's the dividing line there between
I
what's
don't know.
acceptable and what's not?
Obviously they shouldn't want to and or be allowed to. But I mean, what do you do to stop it? I mean, as a it's kind of, I mean, you got, I don't know how to explain it really.
I think if
Nobody
you're a
wants that to happen, but the thing is you got 100 people, 99 of them need help, 95 of them need help, 5 of them are just mooching. So do you cancel the whole thing because of the 5?
Well, it depends. If word catches on and the 5%, it becomes known that hey, there is 5% out there that can mooch off the government
Yeah.
or mooch off Social Security or whatever, and that starts catching on.
So
I
then you
mean,
just cancel the whole thing because
no, you
it
don't
may
cancel the
catch
whole
on?
thing, but I think there should be some conditions. I think if
Well,
you're
I
if
think they
you're able to
try,
work,
don't they? I
huh?
mean, I think they try to put conditions on.
Do they?
I think they do. I mean, there is some conditions, and there probably should be more. I'm just saying, you can't say nobody gets any because someone may be lying and getting it and they shouldn't be. So if this one person can get it and they shouldn't be, we have to cancel it for all. I don't think that should be it, but obviously there should be standards to it. I mean, I don't, you know, people smarter than me, I'm sure, can set some kind of realistic standards to it.
Yeah,
But
I think I think there should be some standards. I don't know. I honestly, I mean, I'm not speaking intelligently because I don't know exactly what the standards are that people
yeah,
have to adhere to. But I know that there's a lot of people that they game the system.
I'm sure there is. Without question, I'm sure there is. But again, it comes down to the question of there's going to be people getting it for free. There always has been, there probably always will be. What do you do about it? Do you try to get rid of those people or do you just cancel the whole thing?
Well, I think you have to hold those people accountable. There has to be measures in place to for people not to game the system. I'm about taking care of our brothers and sisters that need help. I mean, absolutely. People really need help. I think we should help them out. Those of us that are fortunate should help those that are less fortunate, that
Right.
are down on their luck or they're having a hard time or whatever. But so also you think about the gap between the ultra rich and I mean the middle class. I mean it's going away. You've either got
Yeah.
people that are really low income and you got people that are more billionaires created these days than ever before. So I know a lot of people think, well, hey, it's not fair that all these people are getting rich. And a lot of these people are getting rich because they've lobbied for laws to go into place, like tax loopholes and in beneficial treatment from politicians and for laws that favor them. But then there's, the company I work for, I'm fortunate that I work for a company that when we have a profit and we do profit sharing. So when a company makes profit, all the employees of the company actually get a share of that profit, whatever that profit is. It gets distributed to the employees, which is awesome. So I
Right.
really am thankful for the company I work for. A lot of companies don't do it that way. They might get a bonus and it's a set bonus based on performance or whatever. And I think it should be performance based. But a lot of companies don't. A lot of times the executives will just end up taking all the profit
Right.
or it goes to shareholder value, whatever.
I think the younger generation has more to socialism for them than us. When you talk to them, I think it's a lot about not just taking tax dollars and taking tax dollars from people like us that have jobs and are working and don't need government assistance. It's not just about taking money from us and giving it to people that do need it. It's about also too taking that tax money and leveling the field and stopping the 1% from taking advantage, not giving tax breaks to billionaires that are paying less percentage than someone making 30 grand or 20 grand. I think it has a lot to do with that kind of stuff too. Just equality in general, I think, is in with the word of socialism to the 25-year-olds and 30-year-olds. I think
I
they're
don't think
tired
cap
of. what they feel like being taken advantage of the upper class that are getting undue benefits and undue favorability from our government, and they're getting the negative aspect of it. And I think that's a lot of it, where they don't feel like they're being treated right. They think that money should be not maybe so much taken from them, taking more from the rich, having the ultra rich pay a higher percentage, or corporate pay a higher percentage of taxes, so that it's not quite as big of a burden on working class people. Now, whether that is a viable thing to do, I don't know. But I think that's the way they view it.
Yeah, I think it's something we have to be careful with because we don't want to stymie innovation and growth. I mean, our company or our country relies on people to generate to grow the economy, to grow their businesses so that we can afford to pay for the needs of people. I think there should be more of a level playing field in terms of opportunity because I think a lot of the programs that we have in place prevent people from having the opportunity to go and do what they need to do to to in the spirit of capitalism, go be an entrepreneur and actually run a business that can survive instead of being overtaken by the big conglomerates or the big corporations that basically buy everybody out and you don't even have a chance to compete.
But that's going to take help from the government. So then you're back under that umbrella of socialism there. Because, you know, a lot of it is generational wealth. And that's really hard to overcome. That's really hard to compete with as somebody that's poor. When you're competing against, you can't just pull yourself up by your bootstraps when you're competing against generational wealth. So that's where I think the younger generation, and I tend to agree with them to a degree, that the government has to step in and equal it out a little bit and quit favoring the rich over the working class. Because I do believe that government, Democrat or Republican, both favor the wealthy over the working class.
I would agree with that.
When it comes to benefits, I'll tell you one of them. Another example is the school voucher program. So the school voucher program, where you get basically, if you want to send your kid to private school instead of going to public school, then the government will give you the whatever it is, $6,000-$7,000 voucher. I don't know what it is. The problem with that is a middle class working family that's barely living more than week to week. And you're talking about how much is private school? $12,000-$13,000 a year?
At least.
Well, $6,000 or $7,000 is not going to help them any. They're still not going to be able to send their kid to private school. But the people that can send their kid to private school can already do it without the government giving them an extra $6,000 or $7,000. To me, that is a textbook definition of socialism to the more wealthy class people from our government. Is it not? I mean, it's not benefiting, voucher programs are not benefiting middle class. I mean, how many people do you think are out there that says, well, private school is $12,000 a year, and I've got $5,000, but I can't send my kid to private school with $5,000. But now that the government has gave me $7,000, I can do that. How many people do you think there is out there?
Oh, there's probably more than you think.
I don't see it being maybe more than 4, 5, 6% of the people that have kids in school.
That'd be an interesting statistic to find out what the metric is on that.
I think
I don't know.
People that are able to take that money and send their kids to private school could have sent their kids to private school without that money.
This would be a great question for the viewers. If you got a point of view on this, we'd love to hear your point of view.
And I feel like that voucher program will be basically taking money from the school system that the school system needs and giving it to someone that didn't necessarily need it.
I can't argue that.
Yeah.
So when you think about what, and we'll need to wrap up here shortly, but countries that are, like there's no countries that are 100% socialist today. I mean,
Right.
there's typically a mix. Like Sweden, for example, I think is a mix. They have capitalism, but they also have socialism in terms of healthcare, but they also have private business. Like you said, US has Social Security and public schools. But I think to me there needs to be a good mix. There needs to be the opportunity, there needs to be innovation and reward for innovation, but you also need to have a safety net so people don't fall through the cracks. And I do think that too much socialism can slow down economic growth, and too much capitalism can lead to insurmountable gaps in
Right.
class.
Greed. But I think there's more to the social programs than just those people that are falling through the cracks and need help, feeding their family. There's more to it than that, too. I think there's a lot of people that are getting by that can get by the rest of their life. But if they want to be successful and they want to be middle class, they're going to need some help with it. And they're going to need help with either money or regulations that help them, one of the two. So I think the social programs are not just about helping that person that can't feed their kids. I think it needs to be more than that. It needs to be helping people that are trying to move up a level, that's trying to be better and trying to be more successful. They need some help. And I think that's where some of the free college would come in. Because again, if somebody's got some ambition but no ability or no avenue to go after it really, because they're born into a poor family in a poor area in a poor town, the only chance they have is education to do that. Well, without help with getting that education, they'll never get it.
Well, I know where we get some of the money. We give so much wasteful money for stupid things to other countries or other causes that are absolutely ridiculous. Millions and millions of dollars for, well, this could get into a whole nother topic in terms of how our politicians line their pockets with programs that we give to other countries. But so I really would like to get the point of view of our viewers in terms of what's your perspective on this? Do you lean more capitalism, more socialism, more a mix of two? What are some good ideas in terms of how we could solve the gap between the ultra rich and the people that are just barely scrapping by?
And I would really like to hear, I would really like to hear the most from the younger generations, the 20, 30, even 40-year-olds. I think we all have a pretty good idea how Gen X and the baby boomer generation, for the most part, believe. There's those anomalies, but for the most part, we know how they believe. I would love to hear how the newer generation views socialism and defines socialism. Because again, I think their definition is a lot different than what we were brought up. I think I think they would view our definition of socialism as communism. So, and I think their definition of socialism is a lot different. So I would love to hear from actual Gen Z, I think.
I'm losing track of all these
I can't keep
generations.
up with it. But yeah.
I think Gen Z is probably the young working class today.
Right.
Yeah.
I think before that they're too young to hopefully be involved in politics.
No, but they have parents that are listening right now that do have a influence on how their kids will think about this in the future. Yeah, drop your comments in the comment section below. Let us hear your thoughts. We really do read all your comments, and we'll respond to your comments. And who knows, if you got a really strong point of view, we might even ask you to come on the show one day and share your point of view.
And if anybody's got any ideas of topics for two average guys to talk about, and not polished politician or strategist or political
Pundits.
strategist.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, hey, if you enjoyed this and you look forward to more of these kind of conversations, we'd be grateful if you hit the subscribe button, give us a thumbs up, or at least drop your comments and let us know what you think. or what your ideas are, other things that we should be talking about. So with that, that's a wrap. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you again soon.